and where. So I think having more options like that for young people is really important. But also, I'm personally quite interested in the move for young people towards messaging, so instant messaging, and also using anonymous platforms like Student and others as well. So actually being able to control who sees what they're posting, when and where. So that's all quite interesting, and how sometimes they're misusing some of those tools as well by accident.
So now let's just look at data, I guess. Data is a sort of the big data. It's been around for a long time, this buzzword, and there's so much information about individuals available, and both universities and organizations need to not only turn that information into actual actionable intelligence, but also kind of measure the business value of it. So how do you actually do that? Where do you start?
I think actually often there's a case of you do any kind of activity, any kind of campaign, and at the end you go, so what was our return on investment? And it's kind of like, I think because we spend so much time at work and so much time on projects and campaigning, all of us do this, it's like you want to start off by going, why the hell are we actually doing this in the first place? So purely and simply making sure you have your objectives in place. And I think as soon as you have that right at the start, actually that gives you very much more focus, I think, because otherwise you go, right, well, our ultimate goal is to fill a vacancy or fill a course place. So everything we do must focus purely on that. As much as say our creative guys would love an ad to convince somebody to consume all that information in one go and make a decision, that's not the case these days. So I think data enables us to really focus on what is the right thing to do. So actually, you know what? It doesn't matter if that piece of activity doesn't drive people to the application. It's actually about generating awareness. Okay, so all that stuff is about awareness, right? But eventually, we wanted to get to the business end of things and get people to actually apply. Right. So how can we turn the dial more towards actually applying? So I think the objectives thing is an obvious thing, really, but I think it's something that so often it's kind of thought about after the fact. And actually these days, the old classic thing of doing a drop down, selecting where did you hear this from? Others, a great place to advertise it. Everyone selects that most of the time, or the internet. But actually now, you can track all the way from that piece of content through to hire, depending on applicant tracking systems, of course. Yeah.
It would be nice.
Yeah, it's possible. I know it's possible. So yeah, it's a huge value now to what we're doing, I think.
Yeah, I suppose ROI. I mean, that's the eternal question. Always has been with social media, and I sometimes feel almost social media is being treated slightly unfair when it comes to that, because people are so obsessed and so focused on ROI. I feel a lot more than with traditional media or traditional advertising. I think it's partly because you can measure so much more. With the print ad, for example, you can't measure, how many people you reach. You may have the, what the circulation numbers are like, but you don't know how many people actually picked up the magazine or whatever it is and looked at it. And with social, you can do that, but that still doesn't really tell you, what impact it actually had. But yeah, I completely agree with Chris that before you start a campaign, think about what it is you want to achieve, and then think about the metrics. If you don't have anything that you actually want to sell, ROI is a very tricky one. If you don't have an online website where people actually we can physically send people to so they can buy stuff, measuring ROI is really difficult. So think about what other metrics you might be able to use, whether that is reach or perhaps even engagement, really depending on what your objectives are. But it's absolutely vital to first sit down, think about what do I want to achieve and how could I measure that, and it's not always easy, especially for us. So with employer branding, how on earth do you measure employer branding? It's really difficult to measure preference, for example. How do you measure preference? If candidates would like to work, or if people generally would like to work with us, that's a really tricky one. Unless you do very expensive studies, and because, for example, we can't track, unfortunately, whether people click through to apply. Once they've seen us maybe on Facebook, we can track them all the way up to the applicant tracking system, and then we use them. And the whole self-select process is a real challenge for us as well, because it's usually 90% inaccurate when people do self-select. because they usually, I mean, they may see you on Facebook, but then they get that, or they may even see a job ad on Facebook or on whatever it is, or LinkedIn. But they usually don't apply straight away. I mean, we all know that, you have a look, you think, oh yeah, that sounds interesting, but then you go away, maybe look at the company website, then maybe you look at their Twitter account. And once they actually go onto the website and apply, then this question comes up, where have you heard about this app, or where have you heard about this job? Most people then go, oh, just a website or something, they don't quite remember. So yeah, they're huge challenges for us to measure what we actually do, but we still try.
So what do you do? What are the sort of metrics that you use at IHG?
What we measure is things like reach. We look at that just generally, so that we know how many people we actually manage to reach out to. We do look at engagement as well, because it's not only for us about employee attraction, but it's also about retention and engaging with the current employees that we have. And we also look at generally at website traffic, because obviously when we send people to the website, they can learn more about us and have the opportunity to apply. So those are three of the digital metrics that we track currently.
I think the really important thing is that thing of actually tracking through to application and even higher. And I think that means the future is going to be about applicant tracking systems. All those providers actually going, we understand we need to put this code that we don't know about on our platform. I think they need to be held more accountable to it. I mean, it's amazing. Technology companies can be, so averse to having code on their applicant tracking systems, but it's so important. Otherwise, you've got to look at other metrics.
That's one of those platforms. We do actually have that capability, so we can do beyond the click tracking. I think the challenge for us is actually then asking the brand or university to then get the other end, the bit of code onto their sites as well. So that's one challenge for us. So I'd encourage anyone that has their own platform to be open to that kind of thing. So that's one of the great things about online is you can actually track every part of it and then falls it down. If you've got an integrated campaign with offline as well, then how do you track where people have seen things offline and then joining up with online? I guess also I recommend looking at some of the basic stats. So with universities that we work with, we do know that some of them have seen directly conversions time and again from some of the conversations on our site. So they can say actually one or two times when we actually put messages out, we do get people then going on to convert off the back of that. And then if you start to multiply that by the number of people that have read that message, and it does start to tell a picture as well that this is working, and asking questions like, is this information useful? So going back to the thing as you were saying, going back to some of the brand measurements as well, for social media, that can be quite useful.
Yeah, actually Facebook making this accessible to everybody. Actually, if you say you use something like Facebook Power Editor, which is an ad management platform and publishing platform, you can get, they give you conversion tracking codes that you can then put anywhere on your website, and actually, because they have a vested interest in you using them, and they know you need data to prove that it works. So actually, Facebook actually will give you the ability to easily take code and put that on a destination or that end goal. So I think that's going to be more and more the case. Actually, is that the media providers, and certainly I think Facebook are the kind of guys who are pushing this, will actually be giving you more of the ability to actually track all the way through to that point, that important point that you're wanting to track to.
So okay, the ideal is that we can track them all the way through from when they first get in contact with your brand and they're actually applying for whether it's your university or your organization. And there's a lot of talk now about personalization and more about contextualization, about data-driven marketing. So how does that actually work in social media? What do we do with that data? How can we make that experience for the applicant more?
Yeah, for me, so actually part of my job is actually growing our own platform and making it more useful for students along the way. And actually the way that we use data is quite simple. We ask students what they're interested in, what courses they're looking at, but then also we can see what content they're interested in, so which forums they're looking at. And that starts to paint a picture about that individual, all anonymous, so we don't use their personal data without their permission. But that paints this picture online about that individual and what their interests are, and then you can start to match up content. So even matching conversations back to the individual. So if they're interested in studying law in a certain region of the UK, then we could actually start to host conversations around that back to them. So it's actually making the service much more useful and targeted. And I think actually any brand or university could use that as well.
I think, sometimes I think we could do a lot more with the data that we have, to be honest. One recent example where it's not really data, it goes back to tracking, I think, because one of our current challenges is mobile apply. Because most people access social media channels through their mobile phones. And so once they get interested in you, and they maybe seen something on Facebook again and are interested, we basically have then the added challenge that our applicant tracking system isn't very mobile friendly. Even if it was, it's just that the application process is quite tedious, frankly. So we currently think about what we can do about this, because we recently, for example, we did an ad. It was for an internal comms officer, and they were looking for basically for a graduate, and so I did a little test campaign with the internal comms team to see how many people we can actually get this way, and I thought it's a perfect audience, so graduates, and it was really interesting. So we did very targeted ads, targeting people who had a certain degree, were a certain age range, and we had a lot of clicks, but we didn't really get an awful lot of applications. And I thought, that's a bit odd. And then when I looked at the numbers, I saw that something like 80% or so of the people who had seen the ad were on their mobile phones. Should have thought of that before, probably, but I was like, okay, right. That explains it then. Obviously, they see it on their mobile phones. There's no opportunity for them to either send the job to themselves, or so they can't really do anything apart from setting up a profile and so on. And who's got their CV on their mobile phone, for example? Not really many people, and it's quite and you have to kind of fiddle around with your phone to put in all the details. So people don't really do that. So that was really good learning for us, basically, so that next time, it was only really small, we only spent like 100 and 200 pounds or something on it, so obviously next time we would try and do it just for desktop ads, basically, so we would only display those, so you can select that on Facebook, whether you want people to see just on their mobile, just on desktop, or on both, and see how that would work, basically. So that's one kind of use of data that we actually gathered from a recent campaign.
I think data is hugely powerful in personalisation, because you can, for example, we did a campaign for a client where they wanted to, so it's Nestle, one of their brands is Kit Kat, which actually was in the news today, and they wanted to get in front of students on campus. They had a particular message they wanted to get across, and one of them was about getting across the fact that we work on some great brands. So we had a post that was related to Kit Kat, but we didn't just target that to all students in the UK. We actually target universities, people's interests, and also added the extra nice splice onto it, which was those people who loved Kit Kat already on Facebook. Talk about addressable. The social media platforms know so much about us. Users should say, why are you giving me irrelevant content? And I think it's a duty for anyone in the business of trying to convert any kind of awareness and interest through to a university course or a job application, is to actually really look at their target audience and go, you know what, it would be nice for us to send these blanket messages out to everybody, but we know that there's a chunk of people here that are interested in this, so therefore we're going to say, right, actually we do this as a business, and that's related to you. It means you've probably got a lot more content that you need to create, but actually I think there's huge opportunities there, because if I see something in my newsfeed, or anyone sees something in their newsfeed which is highly competitive, you're competing with cats, for God's sake. You're competing with what your family's doing, what your friends are doing, what other brands are doing. Your competition isn't just another employer or another university. You've got to try really hard to make sure that if something comes up in this feed, up in their feed, it's not ignored. So data gives a huge chance to personalise content to particular people.
Okay. up on that, just onto online communities. How does building an online community benefit brands? So both universities and employers.
Well, they're huge benefits because you can, I feel almost that the word engage is really overused when you talk about social, but what other word is there? So because you can engage with people from quite an early on stage, people can learn more about your company, so it's really, and we use it quite a lot basically to show our culture through the people who work for us. And that works really well because you instantly get a flavour of what the company is like, what the people are like, what it's like to work there, and potentially also even what the job's like. So I think that building an online community is just really, in these days it's vital, I would say, to have an online community that you can tap into, I think it's a investment that you can't really not do. You can't really afford not to reach out to the people who are interested, who are potentially interested in you. That's regardless of whether it's just general marketing or whether it's recruitment.
And I suppose on the employees' comms side, you have a great example of how IG has a great community.
So what we do in this space is we've got a hashtag called Life at IHG, and it wasn't really invented by us. It was actually it grew organically, and we then basically started making it our official hashtag. And it just works really well. And the idea behind it is to give people the opportunity to learn more about what it's like to work for us. Also to give employees the opportunity to share amongst other employees, because the hospitality industry, I should say, so Intercontinental Hotels Group, we own brands like Crown Plaza, Holiday Inn, and so on. So and we operate globally. So what has worked really nicely is that employees look at this hashtag basically and see and get really excited. So I've had feedback from general managers saying, yeah, my team, they absolutely love it. You know, they get really excited about the fact that there's also a Holiday Inn in Dubai, and they come to me and say, look, what they're doing in Dubai, can we do that as well? And it really helps with knowledge and idea sharing, which is great. And the other idea behind this is obviously if we have our employees sharing what their work life is like, they're not sharing it just using hashtag, obviously they're sharing it on their own social channels, which then goes to their friends and colleagues and so on. And it's a really great tool for us, to increase our reach in an organic way. And I think word of mouth is just brilliant, to get people to be interested in you and to improve your reputation, I would say. And so one question I get mostly asked, how on earth did you get that past your comms team or your board of directors? Basically, as I said, we had that hashtag was being used on a lot smaller scale actually already. So we basically said, so if we take control of it, you can't really take control of it, but if we do it in an organized way, it's actually a real opportunity for us. So what we did is we created a social media e-learning tool that's available on our intranet, where people can do basically just very basic social media training of how it works, what to do, what not to do, some basic things about privacy and so on, and yes, it works really well, and they get a certificate at the end which they can print off. So we invest quite a lot in learning, so people are quite used to that kind of stuff because there's a lot available on our intranet anyway. So they get a certificate at the end, and a lot of them actually, once they have the certificate, they take a picture and put it online, which is really sweet. And I can encourage you all just to have a look at the hashtag, because it's really, I love looking at this hashtag because it's just really heartwarming, and we've never, touch wood, had any real issues, and so it's completely unmoderated. I mean, how could you moderate it? And it's available on our website, so when people come to learn more about us, they can actually find it on our website. We've got a tool that aggregates all the posts across Twitter and Instagram, and to an extent Facebook, and so you can see what they're sharing, what they're saying, and but it only works if you've got a happy workforce. I have to add that. You can't do that if you don't have a good, happy, engaged workforce, basically. So they have to do some groundwork first, because before that can work, I would say.
It's really nice to see that, because so often I think employer brands can be something that is more about reassurance for the organisation. Yes, we have an employer brand, and they point at PowerPoint presentation slides and lots of charts, and maybe the odd ad here and there going, yeah, we got an employer brand, but actually it's your employees which are such a huge representation of your employer brand, and if they are going out off their own back and actually doing it, that's fantastic. It sounds like you actually give them permission to do it.
Exactly.
You know, so and I think that's a key thing, is giving them permission.
And that's a really good point you're making there. It's more about these days. I come across it a lot more that people are actually anxious and slightly scared to share work-related stuff online, because you always hear about footballers and people getting in trouble for things they've shared, and it's actually so funnily enough, it's not so much about telling them what not to do, rather than going, it's fine, you can do that, it's fine to post a picture from having a night out, because so that's one of our not core values, but one of our core initiatives is basically you can be yourself. We want you to be yourself. It's you have a private life. That's fine. We want you to have that. So of course it's absolutely fine. When they have a team night out, to post a picture. Them having a good time. Because we obviously want them to have a good time.
And it's also about trusting your employees, and I guess treating them like adults, and to know what they can do.
Yeah, so I can say, I had so far only 2 occasions where I had to ask them to take something down. And one was best intentions, but a bit unfortunate. So a guest had written a letter to one of our colleagues, basically saying, I had a fantastic stay, thank you so much, really sweet letter, really cute. But at the bottom, guest put his name, room number, telephone number, email address, and one of our colleagues working in a hotel was really proud of this and took a picture and put it online, and I saw it and was like, that's a really sweet idea, but perhaps take off the personal details of their guest. but that's kind of that was one thing, and the other thing was actually someone posting. So we are currently working on an app that can open. Probably not supposed to say that, but working on an app that can open key door, like a key that you get on your phone, and a colleague actually basically shared something about that, and so that wasn't really basically did a video of it, how it all worked. So, but again, you get in touch and say, hey, you don't do that. Can you take that down? That's it. So it's also about being relaxed, I reckon, and not kind of feel like you have to. I don't want to say threaten them, but you get what I mean, So kind of just because usually, if people have the best intentions, and if you just say, could you kind of take that down, it's usually fine.
Yeah, companies like to have a policy, don't they? So they say, right, social media's happening. I think we need a policy. Let's have a social media policy. And then people's backs get up. It's like, well, actually, I might call it guidelines or a social media playbook. This is what you can do with social media, as opposed to when you say policy, it's like, this is stuff you can't do, really, isn't it? Although it's got loads of good stuff that you can do.
Let's just move on to universities. So, Jack, what is it that you find students need from social media when they're making decisions about higher education?
I think it depends on the age, actually. I think if we talk about youth this morning, youth is a bit of a weird term because it actually includes a whole bunch of different demographics within it. Because someone who's 14, 15 is so different to someone who's 17, 18 applying for university. But I guess for us, there's 2 brackets of stuff that people need from social media. One is from universities and organisations like UCAS and the Student Room. It's that authoritative, just information, correct, accurate statistics, and really quick as well. So if they're asking you a question, they just want that response, and they want it straight away, and they want it to be as accurate as possible and honest. So quite simple, straightforward. But then the other category would be authentic. So actually not to speak to organisations like us, but actually to speak to students and their peers and people who are going through it or have just gone through it themselves. So they kind of want the information gathering, I suppose. And social media is one way that they're like magpies, just picking bits of information here and there, being informed. And they need to have that data on, are they going to get a good career after they've done the course, what sort of grade are people likely to get if they go to a particular university and do a particular course, but then also they want to know, are they going to have a good time? Is it going to feel like home? Are they going to feel supported? And actually, you can ask the university now that what they really want to know is that information from students who are there already. So I think it's those two things from social media, and any platform can help do that. But that's definitely what we see, and we see it on other platforms as well. So those two areas.
Is that different, Chris, in terms of what candidates want from recruiters and employers?
I think sometimes some of the needs are quite simple. It's like, how do I apply for this job? I mean, it's on the website. The application button's right there, but actually, it's just good classic customer relationship management. It's someone's on the move and they've got a busy day and they're on their phone. They see something, they go, actually, I'm just going to ask a question. And to actually have someone to respond to that, going, fantastic. Or actually, what I love seeing is when we're doing work for our clients, sometimes we just see the community just answer questions for us. Of course, if they get some things wrong, we go, actually, it's this. How about you go here? But actually, it's I think it's nice, especially in kind of post an age of where you've got companies who you send an email, you might get a response. You tweet something, you might get a response. It's still pretty bad, I think, generally on Twitter, but it's getting better. But actually, it's really nice just to have someone to actually respond to you, because you've got lots of other things to do in your day-to-day. It's nice that someone just gets back to you. So I think the role of community management is going to be, in a way, it's going to become more of a specialism in recruitment. And I think that the amount of time we spend, that share of the pie, it's going to be more towards things like community management, because you need someone there to answer questions at any given time of the day.
Yeah, that's we talked about community earlier, but I think that's the one thing that I absolutely love about online, is that if you can foster and build communities. I've always worked in building communities with different brands, right up to my job at the student room. But that's the most beautiful thing about online, is you can, if two heads are better than one, then 2 million is going to be the best thing you can possibly get if you can bring them all together. Sharing knowledge is so powerful, and I think that's where any brand, I think it's really pleasing to hear that you're encouraging employees to share information online and not to be scared of if things go wrong. It doesn't matter, and just give it a go, because any brand or university can build a community fairly easily. I think it's just exactly as you said, it's about responding quickly, being useful, and being friendly.
Yeah, actually, I don't think there's anything wrong in well, I think actually if you look at the next few years, probably emojis are going to kind of feature a bit more in our marketing communications. But actually, that smiley face, it's quite nice to have a brand, a person actually do that. So why not? I think I want to see maybe an all category of best use of emoticons in a campaign or something. But it's that thing of actually just being quite human about it. Google said once, years ago, it's not businesses don't make people happy, people do. And I think that's really, 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 really important to keep hold of. So yeah, more emojis.
Let's, so enterprise social networks, big buzzword going around. What do we actually mean by that? Can you shed some light?
To use?
What are they? Just for
is applying social networking principles, technology to within the organisation. I think it's quite interesting how you've got people maybe outside of work, they're using very frictionless communication channels like Facebook, like Twitter, like WhatsApp, like text messaging, and as soon as they get into a company, it's email, it's presentations, it's quite different. So what's really nice about enterprise social networks is actually it's taking what you do in your day-to-day on a social media platform and allowing companies to do that within the confines of their firewall, so to speak. So Yammer has been particularly big over the years. Microsoft bought them, but I think they've kind of lost their way a little bit. And actually, you've got Slack, who valued at 2.8 billion, even over, was it 2 years they've been around? $2.8 billion they've been valued at. 800 million messages sent every single day on the platform amongst all the employees. So Slack's a pretty big deal. I mean, we use it, so a little bit biased perhaps, but there's something going on there. And the fact that money follows where people are, and 2.8 billion is pretty big deal, I think. So I think enterprise social networks are going to have a really exciting future. I think Slack are the ones leading the way. I mean, you've got NASA using it, and NASA do quite important things. So they're not going to take something like Slack quite lightly. At the moment, it's quite you've got agencies using it like yourselves, but their business plan is definitely to obviously to kind of take over the business world, so to speak. So I think Slack's really interesting, and I think especially as Generation Y. I mean, goodness me, it doesn't seem longer since we're trying to get our heads around Generation Y. But now they're fully fledged in their careers, and they're getting to positions of responsibility. They will be changing the direction of companies by saying, you know what, I use this technology. We should be using it within our company. So yeah, I think enterprise social networks are becoming a big deal.
Yeah, I completely agree. So we are currently exploring to reintroduce Yammer. It basically grew organically in the organization, and it got a little bit off hand. So we stopped using it and are reintroducing it now in a more basically organized way. In the meantime, what we do have is on our intranet the option to share stuff basically. So you can join different, so there's a feature called team spaces where you can basically build a community around a certain team or subject. It could be, for example, so I'm part of the HR function, so we've got a global HR team space where people can share the latest trends in HR, for example. Then we have one for social media as well, because obviously we have many different social media departments, so all of our brands have their own social media department, so we share content on there as well. And so that works quite nicely. There's a commenting function and so on, but yeah, it's not quite as you said, it's not quite as seamless, I would say, as Facebook or a proper social network, because at the end of the day it's still our internet. Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to the reintroduction of Yammer, because I've never been in an organisation where it has been used, so that's going to be interesting.
So I think email's used for communication too much, and actually if email turns into more of a notification kind of system, and actually instead of, you come back from holiday, and how do you try and thread the conversations together? It can be a bit of a nightmare, and you want to go back to that beach. But actually, it's I think email's not going to die, but actually it's going to play a role in facilitating the conversation that's going to happen on platforms like Slack and Yammer, because threaded conversation is a lot better than trying to just go through your inbox trying to figure out what the hell has happened over the past 2 weeks, or what's happening on that project.
We've actually seen it creeping in where we didn't expect it to. So in tools that we already use, like Basecamp and our HR use a system called Tribe, and both of those platforms have snuck in social media elements to it, and actually it's being used a lot because people are already in there using it for something else. They're actually using it for messaging, and it has cut down slightly on emails, not enough. We still have activity in some emails as well, but it's starting to creep into everyone's minds that way. Interesting.
Let's go back a little bit. Let's talk about hashtags. So you'll know what they are, and you'll probably have a view on this with the Life at ISG one. But is there any evidence that they actually work?
What do you mean when you say work? As in,
well, do they do their job? Are there any dangers of using hashtags?
Not per se, I would say. Not really. I mean, usually the problem with hashtags is that people sort of try to invent them, and then they don't work, because then it's, actually it's the first time I've ever seen a company or someone having their own hashtag and it actually works. Because where places where before it's kind of do a campaign and people are like, yeah, and let's have a hashtag for that. But at the end of the day, it's only ever the comms team who really uses it. It doesn't really get an uptake really. So I think they can work, but you have to be careful. Don't always think you have to have a hashtag for everything. It really depends on how big the audience is. If you're quite small, don't think that you can change anything by slapping a hashtag into your tweet. That's not really, no one's going to look at it. But I think that there are different uses, obviously, of hashtags. So some people just use it, as an afterthought almost, or to just increase their reach. That's what they're great for at the end of the day, increasing reach, reaching people on Twitter, for example. You haven't that haven't heard of you before. But apart from that, I wouldn't I would probably stay away from creating a hashtag just for every campaign and everything you do, because that usually doesn't really work. Or creating a hashtag around your own company doesn't. Yeah. So it's not so much danger. I think it's more. Yeah, it usually doesn't really have an effect.
The reason why your hashtags work so well is because it was already being used.
Exactly. Yeah.
I imagine if you had an email sent out to everybody going, please use this hashtag, and people delete.
Yeah.
You know? So I think that's a big thing, isn't it? Because people are already part of it, and I think brands, you see it on TV, you know, brands, their ads and they have a hashtag, and you kind of think, why would I even bother?
Exactly.
to use that,
Yeah.
you know? But actually, if you know, like the likes of Twitter, you know, these social media platforms actually enable you to actually do a bit of research. So think about who your target audience is and start to see what kind of hashtags you're using. There's nothing wrong in jumping on a hashtag, so long as you do it in the relevant way. Because you know, you don't want to be seen as the uncool, the not cool uncle, or the older person jumping into a party going, "Hi guys, I'm here, I want to talk." It's like, just go away. But you know, researching hashtags and seeing what people are currently using and seeing how you can relevantly jump on that, I think is a really good opportunity. You'll be doing more of it in the future, I think.
You know, we do that. So we jump on the hashtags that are already trending. You know, there's one time it did take off when I think it was one results day, which is one of the busiest days for us each year, during A levels. We work with about 113 higher education providers, and on that day we had a hashtag called Results Face, which is mainly aimed at students. And initially the students didn't jump on it, but the universities did. And then UCAS as well, and suddenly all of these universities and UCAS were talking to one another with the student rep, and all of the students following us were going, what's going on, why are the universities getting on together, why are they talking to one another, and that created a movement, and it took off that way. So I think if you can get that kind of, you have to have a backing or creative backing in some way from your audience, and it can work, but otherwise just go for the hashtags that are trending already.
Yeah, I suppose if you have a big enough audience, I think that's key. If it's big enough.
Yeah.
In my first job, for example, I was quite young still, and I was kind of in my mindset, let's have a hashtag for almost everything. But when you have only when you really started with 500 followers on Twitter, you know, it's probably not really going to achieve anything by creating a hashtag. So you have to have a certain backing. I'm not saying that it never works, but just don't be disappointed if it doesn't work every time, basically.
On which basis do you decide? So you're speaking from an established audience, but it can be the other way around, that you establish an audience which is following or who's following the hashtag, right? Or
can you rephrase
so
that?
you're saying the decision is based on how big the audience is, but how do you know?
How big the okay, I get you now. Yeah, I mean, if you, for example, if you know there are loads and loads of students, and so it's quite easy to get something going with that. You know, whilst before I ended my first job, I used to work for a charity that wasn't that well known. You know, so it's kind of creating a hashtag for them doesn't really work because no one had heard of them. So certainly no one's going to search for the hashtag. Obviously, going to jumping on other hashtags, obviously that can work. Sure. You can send out a tweet, you know, with a hashtag that's currently perhaps trending, you know, as long as it's relevant. But what I mean is basically inventing your own hashtag doesn't necessarily work or help you reach a wider audience.
I'd recommend trying it first, because it literally costs nothing.
Yeah,
to tweet a hashtag, and if it takes off, it works. Just don't spend 6 months and a few £1,000s building a campaign.
Yes.
And then no one.
I think that sounds very nicely.
Yeah.
So Loughborough University did a really nice thing. They've done it for a couple of years, most recently during clearing, the old Elborough Winner campaign. And actually, they created that, but actually there was a reason for it. It's like, you see a hashtag, you go, why bother? But actually, I've got a place at Loughborough. There's a bit of winning mentality because it's very sporty, but I've got a place at Loughborough, whoop whoop, and it's that hashtag is that whoop, and that's something, and kind of creating this tribe of people that actually will be talking to each other before they get to university, and those are relationships that can be, you know, can be maintained throughout people's lives. So for me, Loughborough's that Elborough Winner hashtag campaign is really nice because it's actually there's a proper reason to have that hashtag. And they're experimented as well. So experimentation is a really important thing. I think people are kind of scared to do. Sometimes you just got to, you don't know until you actually try it and find out.
So I guess one final question for me then. If social media is the new normal, what's beyond social media? What's the next thing?
I'd go with everything. So it's got to be. I think marketing has been making the drum for integrated marketing for a long time, and it's. I don't know if there might be something that everyone will jump on in terms of tech, but I think it's just really mastering that art of joining everything together. And actually, lots of universities are already doing that, and brands are as well. So, but I think it's everybody just mastering which communication channel to use, when, where, and how. That's got to be, for me, that's the next big thing. It's just, and then the measurement side, how you measure all of that is really interesting.
I think stuff like augmented reality and virtual realities is going to take off in the very next 5 years or so, when it becomes a bit more affordable. And that there's so many opportunities. For example, for us, potentially, you could use it to explore more what a job was like. Just imagine you could put on those what do they call the Google ones? Cardboard, yeah, exactly. Put one of those on, and see what it's like to work as a housekeeper, for example, or as a chef. So there are many options, and obviously also in terms of training. So there's and companies start using it already. Travel companies mainly currently. So you can. I went to an event a few months ago now, and I think it was Thomas Cook, and there you can basically put these things on, and you can then explore New York. Or any other city, which is pretty cool. It's amazing. You can look up, you can look up, you can look down, you can turn around. It's really cool. And just imagine you could do that. But for example, be in a hotel, and have a look around behind the check-in desk, for example. What is it like? What do you have to do, and so on. So I think there are great opportunities in that area, and I think that's definitely going to be the next big thing as when it gets cheaper, and that feeds into the whole. Video. Kind of gets. It first used to be pictures and images that were huge on social, and now it moves more towards video, which is a massive challenge because obviously taking good pictures already difficult and challenging enough, but now we have to create videos all the time, which is a lot more expensive, a lot more time consuming. Video and live broadcasting, of course, as well, which with Meerkat and Periscope, it becomes more and more important. Facebook's introducing it now, and I'm sure it won't be long until that's actually a feature. Currently, it's only available, I think, for journalists and for celebrities. But I think it's probably within a year or so will probably be rolled out to everyone, and everyone will be able to broadcast live on Facebook, which I think is a super exciting thing. Because again, you could show people what it's like to work in a hotel live, which is really nice.
Swansea University did something during clearing, which is they actually ran Periscope sessions. It was the student welfare team. Okay, the first one they did, there was 2 people there, but they experimented, and I'm sure the other ones there were a lot more there. I think, and the virtual reality thing, you got the in America, typically they do tend to jump on things before lots of other countries, but there's the Savannah College of Art and Design. They sent out 500 Google Cardboards, which is Explore SCAD, and they got their phones, put them in, and they got to, before they arrived, got to look around the university, the college, which is fantastic. I think the great thing about when Twitter first came along, I remember being it was watching the Beijing Olympics, and it was the closing ceremony, and I was a few months into Twitter, and I got saw this tweet from a BBC reporter, and he goes, "I am in the centre of the bird's nest at the closing ceremony." It's like, wow, I'm in the shoes of that individual. And virtual reality takes that to the nth degree. Periscope takes that to the nth degree. Yeah. And I think as far as kind of, I think social will kind of disappear, and actually social media, Tim Berners-Lee said, was the way the web was meant to be in the first place. I can imagine him saying, bashing his head. It's not a broadcast platform. And I think more brands or companies are going to be in the business of just publishing content, actually going, we're a university or a recruiter, we need to be getting loads and loads and loads of content. 4 billion video views a day on Snapchat, 4 billion video views a day on Facebook, 300 hours worth of video content uploaded every minute on YouTube. So I think video, the specialism of video production is going to be a key thing in any organisation that wants to actually engage with a future audience.
That's a really good question. I don't think so, actually. I mean, especially with graduate recruitment, we actually still go to university. We go into universities, and we actually placing a higher emphasis on that than recruiting through digital. That may change actually in the next year or so, because we're currently evaluating whether, because it's very expensive going into universities, having to stand there, and sometimes we ask them, what's the ROI on that, sending someone there. Usually give out some sort of goodies as well, but I'm not sure. I think exploring it essentially helps, because people, especially in the hospitality industry, I think sometimes they can have the wrong idea of what it's like, either in a too positive or in a negative way. So I think for us that's it's actually a good thing that people are able to have a look behind the scenes first, because employer branding and the work we do, it's not just about attracting people, it's also about saying, look, this is what it's like, maybe this is not for you, because obviously that helps us, if we have, if we've got 1,000 people applying for a job, or 100, but if those thousands aren't really aren't the right fit for us, we'd rather obviously only have 100 who are a good fit for us. So yeah, does that answer your question? So it kind of helps. Yeah. I think it can help us to give people a better impression. We do use it. We're currently evaluating what the worth is actually, or whether it works for us, because it's quite expensive. So doing advertising on there, we've got a what is called, I think it's called a gold account, and there are great opportunities there, but the back end has to work as well. So and that basically is true for across any platform. So you have to get the back end right as well. You have to. There are great opportunities there, but if you can't funnel like all the applications you get, for example, because LinkedIn is a lot about perhaps creating, basically creating like a talent pool and so on, So you have to get that right. But currently, I don't see it working for us that massively, I have to say, just because we're not sure whether it's really worth the massive amounts of money we're paying for it. But yeah, I mean, we would never say, okay, let's not be on LinkedIn at all. So the company page obviously is very important. We use that. We get great engagement on there as well. But all the paid for features, we're a bit not 100% sure.
I think LinkedIn is being used a lot for kind of cherry picking candidates. There's loads of people over there on social media. Oh my God, look how many people on LinkedIn. So I'm going to dip in there and pick out the people I want. And actually, I think the future of LinkedIn will be a decent chunk of the future of LinkedIn is going to be around content marketing, because the targeting you can do by promoting content to the right people is amazing. Your competitors, well, yeah, absolutely. With that job title or that seniority, I can get that really interesting discussion that someone's had in this particular area of specialism right in front of the relevant people. So I think actually LinkedIn is, and they're making a lot of money for this, is the thing about recruiter licenses actually dipping into LinkedIn to cherry pick candidates. But I think they are starting to, and I think it will become more cost effective soon because there'll be more people using it, is using it as a content marketing platform to then spark off those conversations.
A bit of both, it depends. So the e-learning, the social media e-learning is completely free for them to do. So whenever they please, whenever they wish. So we have to, for example, that's something that we at the employer brand team have to push occasionally, you know, through internal comms and remind people that it's there. And we're trying to get that into the onboarding process actually, but it's tricky because there's so many things they have to do, all sorts of courses as part of the onboarding, which are actually more important, which is about legal stuff, you know, and like stuff about bribery and so on, you know, so these kind of more essential courses. So, but we are trying to make the point that getting all employees to take part in this course is obviously beneficial to the company because it protects our reputation, because we educate people. But currently, it's most of those trainings are basically available. So we work with Harvard. So we've got Harvard, something called Harvard Management, where you can do all sorts of classes, which is really cool. So, for example, you could do a project management course on there, and yeah, again, it's completely free, and yeah, people just basically enjoy learning. So that's kind of a huge culture within IHG, you know, kind of the development opportunities and learning and growing and so on. So yeah, it's basically part of the natural stuff that we have. That's a really good question, and I'm probably not the right person to answer it because we've got a team who looks after university recruitment. Because we've got a scheme called Future Leaders, which is our graduate degree or graduate scheme. So I can't really tell you that, but yeah, it's a tricky one. It's not my area of expertise. Sorry.
I can tell you what works on the student room. I can tell you what works on the student room, but it's putting in content onto the platform. So content and social works need to be together. So having that core information. And then also having an official rep, so that similar to an account on Twitter or Facebook, but someone actually going in there to start a conversation, build community, sharing advice, replying to people. So it sounds like a lot of work, but it's not really. And then also encouraging other people at the institution or organisation to go in there and share their experiences. So it's not a complicated process, but that works really well time and again.
I suppose people have to catch up still, because as I said earlier, you know, it can be quite expensive. It's very time consuming, and there are a lot of things that can go wrong. You know, with a picture it's easier, but with a video you've got the sound. You know, that could be wrong. You know, you could have a wobbly camera stand. You may not have a camera stand at all. So there are a lot more things that can go wrong potentially. And yeah, I suppose that's why essentially. Because it's just a lot more difficult to produce.
I agree with that. I think it's cost and skill. So if you haven't got someone who's a professional video production or director or editor, it's probably not going to be good quality. And that's where lots of companies are falling down.
So you don't think there's any tech out there and you haven't been approached by anyone with really good tech that sort of wraps that up for you and makes it easy? I suppose you could look at buying a little bit, but or Periscope and use other people.
Yeah, Animoto's been around for quite a while now. Animoto's a platform one of our clients globally are looking at to use to actually be able to create content through using technology, templated video software. So yeah, that's something that springs to mind straight away. I think there's this kind of, what does good content mean? I think good content is kind of like, well, does it have to be lights, camera, action all the time? I don't think so. But good content means, is this relevant to me? I think brands can talk a lot about themselves, but actually, whether it's looking for a job or whether it's looking for a course, there are things that I'm concerned about that I need to know about. Not, oh, there's a course, I'm going to apply for it. So you don't want someone talking about, well, our course is fantastic, same as everyone else's, and you should apply it. Actually, well, you're thinking about clearing, and actually there was instances during clearing is there was less focus on clearing courses and a bit more focus on, so, how to de-stress in the lead up to results day. Top tips for how to make the most out of results day. Not just right, you're desperate for a course, come and apply. So I think it's about actually going back to the thing about personalisation, thinking about really what people want as opposed to just thinking about what you as a brand want to say. I think that companies shouldn't necessarily have a 5-year plan in place and saying, right, we're going to use Snapchat, we're going to use it for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. They need to move a lot more dynamically in that respect. I think, you know, if you're looking at, it depends on what your objectives are. So actually there's this desire for wanting one particular thing to do everything. I want to do everything so that someone's going to do what I desperately want to do, which is apply or you know, apply for a job or a course. And actually, if it's say Instagram, because we know that we're targeting a specific relevant demographic to that, that's just about awareness, because we know that generally, okay, advertising now be introduced and you can have click-throughs to a destination, but Instagram's not necessarily about directing traffic, it's about awareness. So yeah, brilliant. Instagram sits in the awareness piece. Okay, it needs to be a bit more about getting more specific with messaging and then facilitating conversation. Okay, so perhaps Facebook's that opportunity, or we've got events that we need to do. Actually, then all of a sudden Twitter starts to become relevant. So I think it goes back to the thing about looking at the objectives really, and I think actually companies being prepared to going back to the experimentation thing. You know, actually, if we go for this, maybe a budget holder will go, so how long are we going to use this platform for? Don't know, 1 or 5 years. I don't know, because it may not be relevant anymore. So I think that desire to want to experiment is really important, and know that you're not going to have to stick to a particular long-term plan to do that, because things might change and you might have to move on to another platform.
Yeah, I agree. So we are fairly liquid as well. But the good thing is also that we don't necessarily have to be together with the early adopters. So when there's something new coming up, you know, we don't really have the urge, you know, to be on there. But currently, it looks as if there are more platforms emerging and that stick around than they are disappearing. Because I can't really think of a platform that actually has grown and has become popular that then has disappeared. So we still have Facebook, we still have Twitter, we still have Instagram, we still have LinkedIn. So they're still all around. So currently for us it's more of a challenge actually that it keeps growing, and that kind of there's constantly yet another channel that you potentially might have to be on, and where we have to make the decision whether it's worth, or whether we can, or if we can have the capacity to take on another channel basically.
Just to quickly add one thing to that, I think just a little data view guide as well. So we look at every channel every week, every day actually, but every week we assess it and just look at what content's popular. So at the moment we know education content is really popular on Twitter, whereas on Facebook it's less popular, and actually it's the joking stuff that is currently popular, and that can flip week on week, which is adjusted based on that.
I think it was part of a longer term plan. So actually, okay, ultimately we're wanting no social media presence. We've got minimal social media presence, and we don't really do much at the moment. We want to be in the position where it's a significant part of our attraction, you know, campaigning. But we know we can't run before we can walk. So actually, piloting is a nice way of doing that. So that actually we're trying, say, maybe one platform first, maybe a safer platform, so long as it hits our audience, and then giving them that data to then go, look, it's working. There's nothing like someone seeing clicks through to a website or a number of applications from this particular channel. Like media, have sold media for goodness how many years. You know, people's eyes light up and go, ooh, okay, well actually, you know what? I'm going to put some more money into that. So if it's part of a longer term plan, not just saying, yeah, can we try something out? Yeah, I think experimentation is part of the strategy. Bigger strategy is important.
Good question. I think I'd always aim to have one central area for some people to, and they can go off to different places. So if you saw a student room, for instance, if you have as a university, one of our university partners have a hub page or a university guide page, which then links off to their forum, links off to different pages of information off to their own website. So that performs well. A student navigating to any of those areas can then go back to that hub and to our areas as well. I think what I would need is to on your own website, you'll have links to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, other places, and it's just about recognising the fact that students could actually come in and land on any one of those pages. So actually, I guess you do have to have a hub where you can go, right, just go there, this is the main place to go for information, but I recognise the fact they could land on any of them, and any of those could be a homepage, so you need to be able to navigate back to them. Is that?
Well, it's more actually on the actual social media channels and whether to have one dedicated for students. So we would have multiple audiences, stakeholders, so you're answering to everything. So it's whether we create one just for students, admissions, that kind of thing, or whether we actually...
Yeah, I'd consider doing that. We're starting to do it ourselves. We're splitting out our Twitter feeds, for instance. So we have one for, we've got a B2B one for universities to follow. Actually, most universities still follow the main one, so to see what we're talking to students about. But then we do have one for careers, and we've got another one for teachers as well. We're considering splitting it out, so we might have an education one and a non-education, so a lot of relationships, we might start one. That's going to be an experiment. So kind of with you, I kind of think most people don't have time to follow lots of different things. They might just want to follow the main feed. But if you've got lots and lots to say down on a particular subject, it's worth considering a separate one. That's certainly what we're going to try.
From the student opinion, would you feel that students just want a dedicated channel on admissions information and registration, or are they happy to get that from the central channel where there's lots of mixed information that we're not all of it would be relevant to them?
Good. I think probably at that particular time they will want dedicated information, so I think that's where the personalisation side of things comes in. So on Twitter it's a bit tricky at the moment, but on the student room we are working towards a model where we know exactly what age you're at, and on this day you're going to have to do this, so you need to make this application, so actually knowing that about people will help. So I think on Twitter you could have a separate admissions channel that kind of does that in a slightly clunky way, so it's definitely worth trying.
Just again, just to add to that, I think on Facebook it's just important to have different pages suited to your audience, because if you're posting content that's not necessarily of interest to some of the audience, then your engagement score on the page will go down. So, because people aren't liking and not engaging with your posts, it's not going to hit people's news feeds. They're separate pages, whereas everything you post is of interest to that audience. Your engagement score is higher on Facebook, so it's going to hit news feeds and be seen by more people.
Any more questions? If there's no more questions then, I'd like to thank the panel ever so much today for their thoughts, and thank you all for coming, and hopefully see you again. Thank you.